Life is too short for ordinary music. Jazz on WRFG Atlanta.
I've got Mr. Bruce Pulver right here in the WRFG studio, and Bruce and I have emailed one another over the last, oh my gosh, since we did the fundraiser for James Patterson for the instrument collection and everything, and that was
4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, you know, and I hear a lot about him, and we just every now and then touch base, and this is the first time we've seen one another face to face. Welcome to WRFG, Bruce.
Thank you, Captain. It's great to be here.
Hey, it's fun, man. And I'm going to give our audience a little bit of background on you, which is not going to take anything away from what you do, and you do a lot, believe me. Jazz music entered this man's life at a very early age. His father, Art Pulver, was a New Orleans-style traditional jazz musician. Both recorded and live music was always played in his home. His father would take him as a toddler to the Easy Riders Jazz Band rehearsals in the late 1960s. So jazz music has always been a part of Bruce's life. Bruce's musical journey twisted and turned through his high school and college years, and at Florida State University in the early 80s he studied both music, percussion, and business. While the business endeavors have taken first chair over professional playing, Bruce has developed outlets keeping him deeply involved in the music. He's a freelance writer for Jazz Times, plus other projects, which include contributing liner notes for projects and online publications by writing for www.jazzreview.com. He produces jazz articles, which covers artist interviews and venues and CD reviews. He's been a judge for the Atlanta Future of Jazz competition, which was a lot of fun. And a lot of artists came out for that. That was very nice. And that was something that I got involved in at the very beginning of it too. And he's worked with several artists on pre-release materials and CD liner notes and booking events. I told you this man stays busy. And educational programs as well. He continues to use his business background by helping artists promote themselves and grow their audience and increase exposure. And most recently, and not only most recently, but most recently, in fact it was
Friday night.
He's been producing and promoting live concerts in an in-home setting. And these house performances unite artists with a live audience, thus creating an intimate, up-close experience for both artists and attendees. The busy Mr. Bruce Pulver.
Wow. Sure you're talking about me?
Hey, man. Let's start out a little bit. Let's talk about, where are you from originally?
I grew up in the west coast of Florida.
Okay.
Down near Tampa.
All right.
Yeah.
Been to Tampa, love that, wanted to move there, love the water. Anywhere warm and I can hear water sloshing up against earth.
Absolutely. It's a great place to grow up.
And how'd you get, I know there was music in your home and everything, but when did you start playing and what did you play?
I played the drums.
Uh-huh.
Well, officially probably in 5th grade, you know, but Dad would take me around everywhere and I'd get behind the kid as much as I could. But, you know, through school, you know, the programs at school down there were really good, and that's pretty much where it started. Some really good music programs in the elementary school. Actually, a really cool experience in high school. My little town was a Scottish town, so we were involved in the bagpipes and drums, as well as a really strong jazz program. I'll never forget, we had a band mom who every year would bring the big bands to our high school, and at that period of time that included Buddy Rich, Maynard Ferguson, Woody Herman, and Stan Kenton's bands. So at 15, 16, 17 years old, we were hearing those bands, so I couldn't get away from it. It was either in my house or it was in the school.
Wow. And of course this was all destined, for you to be exposed to this and to do what you've done. So after you went to Florida State, you got a degree in what?
Degree in business with a minor in music. Yeah, I studied there. I was there at the same time Marcus Roberts was at Florida State, and had the honor to play with him a few times while I was going through the program. Finished the first year in music, and then switched over to business school and continued the music endeavors as I could, but focused on the business side a little bit more.
Wow. And the business side has been what for you now?
Well, my profession is in the healthcare software business, so I'm out calling on customers throughout the Southeast and helping them, try to help them use information to run their businesses better.
Wow. And that keeps you on the road, doesn't it?
It does. Keeps me on the road a lot. 2.5 million miles on our hometown airline here. So.
Oh gosh, man, that's a lot of mileage. A lot of mileage. And how long have you been here in Atlanta now?
Almost 30 years. Yeah, almost 30 years.
So after college, you just came up to Atlanta?
Right here. Yep.
No kidding.
Right.
And what brought you here?
Work did. Yeah, out of school. Yeah. But I stayed connected with some of my Tallahassee buddies. Greg McLean, who's a trumpet player here in town and runs the Perimeter College program.
Right.
He and I were in college together.
Yeah.
And so we gigged a little bit when I first moved here, and then reconnected with him recently when we bought one of the clinics that we did. We brought Duffy Jackson, who was a legendary jazz drummer who played with Basie and Lionel Hampton and Sammy Davis Jr. back in the 70s and 80s. He's now in Nashville, and I've become good friends with him. And we brought him down to do a clinic last year, and we did it with Greg's band, which was just a blast.
Wow. I haven't seen Greg in a while, It's been probably since 2004 is the last time I've seen him.
Yep.
But, with the internet, you can keep up with everybody.
Absolutely.
And, some of the things that we were talking about here is that doing the educational part of it, and that's something that's extremely needed, I've interviewed a lot of artists, and they always talk about how they were mentored, Someone took them under their wings and pulled their coattails, so to speak, And that's something that, we really need to have more of. And it's a good thing that, the things that you're doing also. And so how did you get into, I know you're a percussionist, but how did you get into writing and then doing that part of it?
Well, that's probably family related as well. My father did awful lot of writing. When I remember when I was growing up, and he wrote some plays and was a poet, and he just kind of had it, and so it was something that kind of came easy to me because I read a lot of his writing, and it just when I listen to music, I kind of can hear what I think someone will hear if they listen to it. So that's what I try to do. I try to almost make a visual perspective of the music I'm hearing to draw people in to try to listen to it. So that's how I kind of got involved in wanting to do that. I submitted a sample to Jazz Times and JazzReview.com, and they started sending me CDs. So I just started writing about them. So it's time consuming, but it's really rewarding, especially when something is really touches you, like some of the artists that I've chosen to review have been just amazing. I felt like I had to say something about them.
Absolutely. That's funny because when I lived in Hawaii, and I did freelance writing there for a publication called Strictly Jazz, and here also, Strictly Jazz, and there was a magazine called Sounds Good, and that's the same thing. Music, and especially, the type of music that really speaks to you is what moves you emotionally. And then there is a connection there. A lot of music comes out, and some of it goes over my head. Some of it just doesn't say anything to me. And then there are artists, man, I listen to them, and they just take me into what I call the third level. There's the first level of just kind of background. Second, it gets your attention a little bit. Third is like, oh my God, if they don't stop, I'm going to leave here,
Yeah.
And but let's talk about some of the things that you've done for Jazz Times, and then we'll talk about some of the things for the JazzReview.com.
Sure. Well, the first cut that we just did was Melvin's, and when I got that, it was something I had to write. It was just so much energy in that record or CD, and that's the recent one I did for Jazz Times, and it just it's just great music. And the fun thing about Jazz Times is I can publish that and then immediately link it. So if with my network either on Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever, I can immediately get that information out, and I think the artists appreciate that as well because they'll post it to their websites and they can kind of do the same thing. So did that, and I did Jacob Deaton's latest record called Tribulation, which I think is great also. So I try to mix it. I try to do some things that are local because I really like to support the local scene because it's amazing here, in my opinion. But at the same time, I do like to branch out and discover, artists from other locations. I spent a lot of time in Nashville, and so there's some artists there that I've gotten to know. And it's a really nice community, both here as well as anywhere I go. When folks realize that you take the time to listen to their music, they really appreciate that. So it develops fast friendships. It really does.
Yeah, and I bet it surprises them too. Oh, how'd you find out about it?
Yeah. It's easy on the internet.
Absolutely. So when you travel around, do you just kind of go online to find out what's going on there in the area that you're in?
Absolutely. I mean, Google is amazing. Jazz in Nashville, jazz in Pittsburgh, jazz in San Diego is really all you have to do. And you'll either find a radio station or you'll find a club or something, and then you can just make a phone call and say, what's going on? Where would I go tonight to hear something good? And do they serve food there? Because you got to eat. And you just check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And I bet with all the traveling you do, you get to go to a lot of different places.
Yeah.
You've been abroad as well?
I have been to England. Didn't get to Ronnie Scott's, but was hoping to. But most of the travel is domestic for me, so it's not too bad.
Yeah. Pick up any posters from these places?
Usually a hat or a coffee cup or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm more into posters. My wife says, "Dang, you just should get stock in this frame company." But why don't we go ahead and listen to some more music that you brought? Now we heard two pieces. The first one was.
The first one we heard was from Melvin. It's called Juggernaut. And I think we're going to move to another Atlanta artist who's Michael B. Who's a.
We played Michael B.
We did play Michael B. Okay, we played Michael B. Okay, I'm sorry, I missed that. All right, so.
Blues of the Prairie.
Okay, we did that one. Great. I'm glad we got that on because that's a great recording. I think that's just a real. I talked to Michael a lot. It's just a real greasy blues, and it's an Oscar Peterson composition that Michael was probably the only person that recorded that besides Oscar Peterson. So yeah, it's a really nice recording. So if we're going to move to the third selection, this might be. I brought something in that my father played. So you talk about inspirations. This is something that was played in my house very, very frequently.
Life is too short for ordinary music. Jazz on WRFG Atlanta.